From Conor McGregor and Khabib's aggressive feud to Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate's hatred for one another, these are the most bitter rivalries of UFC. This first one started more than a decade ago. It's Daniel Cormier versus Jon Jones. It all started back in 2010 when they met each other backstage. Little did they know at the time that they'll be turning into the worst of enemies in the coming years. What happened was that Jon, 23 years old back then, turned out to be a bit too arrogant, and he acted like that in front of a guy like Daniel, of all people. So, naturally, if a noob starts acting like a big shot in front of you when you have years of experience over them, it's obvious that you'd get rubbed the wrong way. Ever since that, the two have been relentless when it comes to attacking each other. Like, things got so bad at one point that the authorities literally had to call on security to keep both men from attacking each other. And then finally, they decided to hash it out in the ring. Initially, in UFC 178, Jon had to pull out because of an injury, but they finally met twice following that. One was in UFC 182 and the other in UFC 214. Unfortunately for Cormier, Jones took the W in their first meeting. While Jones' second victory was overturned and ruled a no contest. Anyway, the two have moved on in different phases of their lives, but even today, they're at each other's throats. Jones, while going for the heavyweight division, and Cormier as an MMA analyst, are both always looking for opportunities to pounce at each other. Up next is another rivalry which involves a man who's also known for being too arrogant. It's Khabib versus Conor. Yup, everyone witnessed this one, and it was bad. Though it's not like things were always this horrible. No, these two actually started out as great friends, but things eventually got a little too heated. They had their first ever fight at UFC 205, and that's when the trash talk got a little out of hand. Their verbal jabs got a little too personal, a little too soon.
This has been a war zone. We are coming for war. This fool is saying it's going to be a long night. Trust me, mate, I'm ready for a long night. You hold on to legs for dear life. That's how you fight. You talk chicken this, chicken that.
And that birthed one of the most famous and bitter rivalries of UFC. And then, as if that wasn't enough, things got out of control when Conor and his team ambushed the bus Khabib was on. Jeez, McGregor really had no chill. Anyway, after a lot of teasing, threats, and insults, mostly from McGregor, the two finally got a chance to deal with each other in the octagon. And that's when they had their memorable fight at UFC 229. The results of this match left the world stunned and showed who the true champion was all along. While McGregor was great at taunting Khabib, calling him names, and even dropping racist remarks now and then, he proved to be the hallmark definition of a man who talked the talk but could not walk the walk. When in the ring, Khabib took just 4 rounds to get Conor in a rear naked choke and ultimately won the match. As if the humiliation wasn't enough for Conor, Khabib was also awarded the title of the best UFC fighter of the year. This one was kinda satisfying, you gotta agree. Up next is another ugly, bitter rivalry that the world could not get enough of. It's obviously Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw. Things got so complicated between these two that many labeled their rivalry as the most disgusting, but also the most entertaining in the UFC. Like, their rivalry includes everything that you'd find in a movie, from bad blood in the past to disgusting scandals, knockout challenges, and lost championships. These two have gone through it all, and to imagine that they started out as teammates. Yep, they were actually a part of the same team while in Tem Alpha Male. This was a gym in Sacramento founded by Uriah Faber. There was a coach at the gym, UFC fighter Dwayne Ludwig. The man was unsatisfied with all the losses, so he decided to quit and head back to Colorado. But coincidentally, at the same time, TJ got a major win, and that's when he decided to move to Colorado as well with Ludwig so he could train with him full time. That obviously didn't sit right with his ex-teammates, especially Cody Garbrandt, who was just on his way to the top. And then, in order to prove himself as the better fighter, Cody ended up winning a championship opportunity while TJ lost a bantamweight title to Cruz. This upset made Cody the king of bantamweights and added fuel to the fire. They finally got to face each other in 2017, and the trash talking was truly despicable. They fought at UFC 217, and TJ came out as the winner in that match.
UFC bantamweight
as well as in the rematch. Ever since then, the two have been with each other. This next rivalry is also another instance of friendships gone wrong. It's Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell. These two also started out as the best of friends, but unfortunately, their friendship just wasn't meant to be. And instead of being decade-long buddies, they ended up as bitter rivals. Did you know that back then, Liddell was having the time of his life, getting several wins, but at the same time, he was also helping Ortiz with his training. Yeah, he had helped Tito prepare for his match against Vitor Belfort, but then some distance came between them. He started to train with a friend, and things got a bit messy. Tito lost to Randy a year later, making Chuck his next opponent. They fought at UFC 47, and Chuck came out as the victor. The two got to face each other again in UFC 66, and again Liddell was the man of the game. It clearly looked like he was the better of the two, as Tito just couldn't keep up. But then God knows why they decided to have another match. And yep, you guessed it, Chuck Liddell won again. I don't know if it was the humiliation from the consecutive losses or what, but their rivalry always got worse and worse. Up next is a pair of female fighters who were known for making women's MMA interesting. It's Miesha Tate versus Ronda Rousey. They first met in 2011, and it's been trouble ever since. Not once in their careers did the two have a soft side for one another, but when they finally made it to the ring, things got even more bitter. Miesha was super controlling throughout, doing everything she could to get the upper hand, but unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be. Ronda was clearly the better player, as she pushed Tate to the ground and made her submit. But obviously, one bout is never enough. The two then decided to have another match at UFC 168. Miesha was ready to prove herself again, and honestly speaking, she did pretty well. After all, Ronda had never been pushed into a third round, but Tate made it happen. Though at that point, Ronda decided that enough was enough, and she made Miesha tap out again. Gotta give it to her for consistency. Finally, I have the world-famous duo, George St. Pierre versus BJ Penn. This was easily one of the most dishonest rivalries of all time. They went through all unethical means possible to make sure that the other person got hurt. Like, some fans thought that BJ would often go out of his way to make trouble for GSP. Not only did he damage him in matches with injuries, but also put up allegations of steroid usage and whatnot. Not to forget, there was this one time that GSP had one of his cornermen rub some extra Vaseline to give him the upper hand, and then the two faced each other in the ring, where GSP came out as the victor. And those folks were the worst and most bitter rivalries of UFC. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.